Hello boys, welcome back to another session of video tutorials. In this session, we are going to discuss and understand a very important concept called menstrual cycle. So, what is it? But before we understand this, you need to recollect and remember the concept that you have understood in the previous session, that is oogenesis. So please revise the concept oogenesis before you start studying this menstrual cycle. There is a internal connection between the two, and the oogenesis will tell you about how functional ovum will be formed. So that functional one ovum gets released on 14th day of each menstrual cycle. So for that, how functional ovum is formed, you need to go back to oogenesis. Okay, now come back. So this is chapter 3, human reproduction, and this is meant for class 12th biology boys. And in this session, we are going to discuss and understand menstrual cycle. So I am expecting you at the end of this session to define all the technical words, and you are able to understand the various phases that are present in menstrual cycle. You also understand and appreciate the role of hormones in this. So with that in our mind, let's go to the concept menstrual cycle. So menstrual cycle is basically a cycle in which series of changes take place in the reproductive tract of all primate females. It is marked by characteristic events repeated almost every month. To be precise, 28 days. So once in 28 days in a matured female, the menstrual cycle takes place. And in this cycle, as we said, menstruation takes place along with ovulation. So both are different. Menstruation is different, ovulation is different. Menstruation, as you are able to see here, is the term given to the periodic discharge. And what is getting discharged from the female body? Blood, tissue, fluid, mucus from the reproductive tract of sexually mature females. Biologically, they should be matured. The flow usually lasts from 3 to 6 days. In some females, it will be 3 days, in some 4, 5, 6. So on average, we say 3 to 6 days in a month, and is caused by sudden reduction in the hormones. Now hormones play a crucial role, and as all of you know, there are two female hormones, estrogen and progesterone, and these hormones play a crucial role in this menstrual cycle. And every female becomes biologically matured at the age of around, say, on an average 10 to 11 years, and that stage period is called menarche. In general, we say puberty for both male and female. So in a female, the menarche phase will be somewhere around 10 to 11 years. And during this menstrual cycle, the endometrium, remember this word, inner layer of uterus, prepares itself for an expected pregnancy, and a fertilized egg getting ready, that is zygote getting ready, and the zygote getting attached to the walls of the uterus. That's called implantation. We will be studying about that in the next session. In case fertilization does not occur, the uterus lining will start shedding away. So with that in our mind, we see the different phases that take place during menstruation. So the entire menstrual cycle, as you are able to see in this cycle, can be divided into 4 phases. Menstrual phase, that is bleeding period. This normally lasts 1 to 5 days. So it's a 5-day affair wherein a lot of blood will be coming out, endometrial wall tissue will be coming out, sometimes dead cells will be coming. And previously people were thinking that it's a curse for the females, but latest research shows that it is blessing in disguise, as many of the pathogens will be coming out of this menstruation. And the second one is follicular, and this menstrual phase you can see here in the pink color. Okay, here it's ranging from 1 to 5, and as you are able to see here, there's a lot of bleeding coming out. The endometrial walls, broken arteries, broken veins, blood, and some of the pathogens, dead or alive, all this will be getting shed out. And in the next one, follicular, as the name says, follicles. Before the egg is released, this phase takes place. This lasts normally 6 to 13 days. 6 to 13 days. We call this as proliferative phase. So endometrium gets rebuilt. There are two hormones called FSH and LH here. Follicular stimulating hormone, FSH, and then LH, luteinizing hormone. This secretion increases, FSH and LH secretions increase, and this stimulates follicular development. Remember, in oogenesis we talked about primary follicle, secondary follicle, tertiary follicle, Graafian follicle. So all these are taking place because of the influence of these two hormones, FSH and LH. And once the follicular development takes place, there will be a secretion of estrogen. Another hormone gets secreted, estrogen. And the third one, most important one, is ovulatory. Ovulatory, it just lasts for 1 day, and this 1 day is normally 14th day of menstruation. 14th day, functional ovum gets released. Look at this in ovulation. Ovulation takes place on 14th day on an average. Again, it depends on the level of hormones secreted by the female and the time at which they are secreted, all these things, and the mental status of the female, etc. And in luteal phase, this is luteal, that is, we say secretory phase. We can call this as, in common language, secretory phase. In secretory phase, this normally lasts from 15th day to 28th day, almost 14 days. So this is perhaps the longest phase. And as you are able to see here, in the luteal phase, the uterine lining continues to thicken. Thickening of the uterus takes place. So entire menstrual cycle can be divided into 4 phases. Menstrual phase for 5 days that lasts, follicular stage that lasts for 6th day to 13th day, and then ovulatory just 1 day, and luteal phase, which is a secretory phase, will be lasting for 14 days. And let's see the role of hormones. Look at that. The entire cycle, as we said, gets completed in 28 days, 1 to 28 days at the bottom. And look at that, 1 to 5th day we said menstruation. See here, the lining, the uterine wall getting faded out. And during this, you can see on top the influence of progesterone, almost flat, very low levels of progesterone. Estrogen, to start with, it is low, and as we move on to next phase, follicular phase, the estrogen levels go up. Similarly, look at that FSH, red colored one. Initially it is up, then it comes down, and then look at that luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone also is very low, and gradually it picks up itself and goes up. So during this phase of menstruation, we can see virtually progesterone and estrogen are at low levels. And in the next phase, that is follicular phase, you can see 6th to 13th day, there is proliferation. Look at the top, the oocyte getting covered with follicles, layers, epithelial layers. And you can see the formation of mature follicle, Graafian follicle. So you can recollect, that's what I said in oogenesis: primary follicle, secondary follicle, tertiary follicle, and of course Graafian follicle. And here on 14th day, look at this, you can see very important event takes place, ovulation. Look at that, the functional ovum getting released. And look at the level of hormones. the hormone, the influence of estrogen is highest, peak. Influence of FSH is up. The influence of LH, of course, is very, very up. And what is low at this level? Progesterone only normal. Look at that. So the influence of hormones is enormous during this phase. And once the functional ovum gets released, what is left out is corpus luteum. And the corpus luteum time, look at that. I want you to focus on the progesterone. Look at that, progesterone level going up and estrogen level going up. Whereas, look at that, LH and FSH, they are coming down. So, in luteal phase, there is deconstruction of the endometrial wall, and this process goes on. And at the end of the 28th day, 29th day onwards, next menstrual cycle takes place. So in this way, 1 month alternatively on left ovary and right ovary. So let's say now this is the month of June. In June, let's say left ovary menstrual cycle takes place. Then in July, right ovary. In this way, each ovary will be releasing, fortunately, only one functional ovum on an average in a month. And we are thankful to God that all the 4 ova will not be becoming functional, only one. That's how we are having only one baby at a time. With that, we are 130 crores population. And let's see in the next slide. Here, menstrual phase, bleeding phase. Look at this. The blood coming out from the uterus, uterine walls coming out of it. And it occurs only when ovum released and fertilization does not occur. So once the lady is pregnant, no more menstruation. So lack of menstruation is the indication of pregnancy. This is a common observation. And then a follicular phase, as we discussed. Look at the influence of hormones. Okay, and these hormones will be helping them to make the formation of follicles, that is primary follicle, secondary follicle, tertiary follicle, Graafian follicle, and follicular stimulating hormone that stimulates follicle formation. Hence, it's a must. And this increases estrogen, as you are able to see in the graph. So the LH and FSH attains peak on 14th day. So rapid secretion of LH surge induces Graafian follicle to rupture and release ovum, and resulting in formation of corpus luteum. And in the luteal phase, of course, in between 14th day, don't forget, ovulation takes place. So in this phase, it happens after ovulation, because 14th day ovulation takes place, and this starts from 15th to 28th day. And in many of the exams, they will be asking you this question: what is the function of corpus luteum? So it is helping in release of progesterone, a hormone called progesterone. There is a surge. So this phase begins after ovulation. Ruptured Graafian follicle transformed to corpus luteum. It produces, look at that, large amounts of progesterone. Keep remembering this. And how long this takes place in a biologically matured girl? On an average, we can say 50 years. But recent research shows that because of the lifestyles, because of the influence of the computers, particularly software engineers, this menopause is happening very early, somewhere say 30-35 years only. Hence, this need to be observed, and necessary changes in our lifestyle must take place. So cyclic menstruation is an indicator of normal reproductive phase and extends between menarche and menopause. What is menopause? The time or period at which the female stops producing menstrual cycle. So that is the end of it, end of the reproductive phase. So once the female attains menopause, then she cannot be mother anymore. Of course, we can intervene with that artificially, but then we'll be talking about that, how we can help the issueless mothers. But then this is a natural indicator. Menopause is the indicator for a female that she can be no more having reproductive capacity. I hope you have understood this and appreciate the menstrual cycle that takes place in a female.